Greta Thunberg, thank you so much for joining us on UpFront.
Thank you for having me.
Uh, Climate conferences have, in theory, been a space where environmentalists and activists and governments come together and they discuss pressing environmental issues, things like global warming, pollution, fossil fuels, the impact of the climate on the world, important stuff. But are they working in your view? Do you think that there have been any material gains that have come from climate conferences?
I mean, of course, one could argue that there have been some marginal wins from them. Um, but I think also we need to zoom out a bit. We're in the year 2024. The climate crisis is rapidly escalating. Last year, the world experienced an all-time high of greenhouse gas emissions, and we are about to experience the hottest year ever recorded and the first year to reach the 1.5-degree target. We are obviously doing something wrong if all that these climate conferences are leading to are increased emissions and marginal things on paper. I think as it is right now, these climate conferences have proven time and time again to be a place for people in power and those most responsible for the climate crisis to come together and greenwash themselves. This year at COP, there were 1,773 fossil fuel lobbyists present, which is more than the top 10 most vulnerable countries and their delegations combined. So I think we have to stop pretending that under these circumstances, these climate conferences would lead to any real climate action.
I want to drill down on that more. When you say greenwashing in this context, what exactly does it mean for those who aren't familiar? Like what kind of violations, what kind of failures, what exactly is happening here?
Yeah. So let's take this year's COP as a textbook example of greenwashing. For example, Azerbaijan, the host country of this climate meeting, staged environmental protests in order to establish a humanitarian blockade, starving people in Artsakh, Nagorno-Karabakh, in Armenia, and right now are given a platform on the world stage to legitimize and greenwash their human rights abuses, while pretending that they care about the climate by getting to host this climate meeting. And so by using the environment as a reason, they are trying to greenwash their human rights abuses. That is one aspect of it. And then, of course, the aspect that they are a petrol state, which is completely dependent by fossil fuel production and exports. For example, they export huge amounts of oil to Israel and therefore are a fundamental part of the Israeli war machine, just as one example. And they have no plan of taking real climate action. They are planning to expand fossil fuel expansion. But they're getting away with it because they are so good at framing it as if they are doing enough. And since the level of awareness about the things that they are actually doing is so low that people don't hold them accountable.
Speaking of holding people accountable, while you're known around the world for environmental activism in particular, you're also a staunch human rights defender. This past year, for example, you have protested against Israel's genocide in Gaza. You were even arrested while demonstrating in Copenhagen. Your activism on Palestine has landed you in some pretty hot water. People have called you an anti-Semite. I've heard people call you a Jew hater. Many things have been said about you. What have been the consequences of your activism, particularly your activism on Palestine? Has it closed any doors? Have any spaces been made unavailable to you as a consequence?
I mean, the climate crisis, the reason why I am a climate justice activist is not just because I want to protect trees and frogs. It's an ecosystem. Of course, that's really, really important. But what it boils down to, at least for me, is that because I care about humans and their well-being. And no matter what the cause of human suffering is, whether it is climate crisis, whether it is war, oppression, genocide, I will fight against those causes. The climate crisis is built on injustice. It is built, the logic behind it is that we are sacrificing ecosystems as well as current and future generations for the possibility of few to keep making unimaginable amounts of profit and to continue exploiting planet and people. So if we as climate activists are not able to see and speak up against the current marginalization and oppression and killings of people today, then I don't think we should be able to call ourselves climate justice. We cannot just pick and choose which struggles we are supporting. That's just pure
But you know,
racism in
some struggles are
my view.
more high stakes than
Yeah.
others. Some things you'll get a critical review in a newspaper from your political opponents. Some you'll get blasted on social media, and in others you can have, you know, major professional, academic, even economic consequences for. In the case of Palestine, what have been the consequences for you?
Yeah, many. I have I have lost many friends, and I have been called all imaginable stuff on the internet in every possible place. But I was already being that before, you know. But I think if you, as an activist, aren't uncomfortable, I think you're doing something wrong. We aren't here to be people pleasers. We are here to say that, okay, this is messed up, and we need to do something about it. For example, and when we talk about anti-Semitism, when we are saying that speaking up against Israel's genocide, which of course in not any way is linked to Jewish people or representing Jewish people, if we are saying that criticizing Israel and its genocide on Palestinians is anti-Semitic, first of all, we are extremely watering down that term. Anti-Semitism is a very serious problem that many are suffering from on an everyday basis. Not only are we doing that, but we're also using their suffering for whatever political purpose is behind that. And that's absolutely outrageous. Um, it is, again, a question about basic human rights for everyone. For example, when we say climate justice, we mean climate justice for everyone. We mean justice and freedom and safety for everyone, especially the most marginalized people, like Palestinians right now. This has really showed the true colors of the world. Every day we keep seeing this, and it's just absolutely disgraceful. So many people that I thought were good people and cared about human rights and equality, and has shown that they are actually not doing that. It's been, yeah.
Let's turn in a different direction. I'd like to turn to the United States for a minute. Donald Trump has been elected for a second term as U.S. president. And you've exchanged some words with Trump on Twitter in the past. You've traded jabs and speeches. It's been pretty intense at times. Trump's environmental record was dismal during his first term, which is probably why you were so committed to speaking against him. He's not a believer in climate change. He's even called it a hoax. He said he was going to pull out of the Paris Agreement again, and he's pledged to increase fossil fuel production and, quote, drill. His pick for energy secretary also denies that there's a climate crisis. What do you think Trump coming back into the presidential office is going to mean for the environment and for the fight to protect it?
I mean, you don't have to be a genius to see that another Trump presidency right now will be nothing less than a catastrophe. And it's going to be, it's, it's difficult to talk about this subject without using words I should not be using. But it is very obvious that our current systems are not working in the majority's favor. And as it is now, when the alternative movements are being increasingly silenced and demonized and repressed, people will most likely continue to be drawn to right-wing populism and fascism, and that is an extremely scary development that we are seeing all over the world, not the least now in the US. But of course, we also have to remember that, as an example, like we were talking about Palestine, the genocide in Palestine is happening under the Biden and Harris administration with American money and American complicity. And no matter who will be president, as long as nothing fundamentally is changing, the USA will continue to be an imperialist, hyper-capitalist world power that is going to continue to lead the world further into this climate catastrophe and a racist and unequal world. But of course, Trump in this case is extremely dangerous. But I mean, we have to, we cannot let this put us into further despair and apathy. Uh, the opposite, we have to let this be yet another reason why we are getting organized and filling the streets and resisting, um, because there is there is no other option. This has to radicalize us.
Well, it seems like
And we
it seems
cannot.
as if you are actively resisting. You're certainly not in a state of despair, or at least not letting despair stop you from fighting against power. And it's not just Donald Trump. Politicians in Germany are calling for you to be banned from the country because of your participation in pro-Palestine protests. You're on a Hungarian media watch list because of your activism. You've come under fire from politicians in India after supporting the farmer protests there. Why do you think governments find you to be such a threatening figure?
Well, obviously, have you seen me? I am extremely threatening. No, but it's when people like that, among the most powerful people in the world, are are saying those things and are acting in that way, that means that they do feel threatened, and that is a very positive sign, because that means that we are actually making a difference. Um, Otherwise, they wouldn't waste their time doing that, and they wouldn't embarrass themselves on the world stage saying those kinds of things.
Greta Thunberg, thank you so much for joining us on UpFront.
Thank you for having me.